Brilliant, kind-hearted, tortured Harry Cameron. I was nominated for Best Actress for Carolina Sunset. The only problem was that Celia was nominated that year too. I showed up on the red carpet with Harry. We were engaged. He'd given me a diamond and emerald ring. It stood out against the black beaded dress I wore that night. 2 slits on either side of the skirt went up to my mid-thigh. I loved that dress. And so did everyone else. I've noticed that when people do retrospectives of my career, photos of me in that dress always make it in somehow. I made sure it would be included in the auction. I think it could raise a lot of money. It makes me happy that people love that dress as much as I do. I lost an Oscar, but it ended up being one of the greatest nights of my life. Celia arrived just before the show began. She was wearing a pale blue strapless gown with a sweetheart neckline. The color of her hair against the dress was striking. When my eyes set on her for the first time in nearly 5 years, I found myself breathless. I'd gone to see every single one of Celia's movies, even though I was loath to admit it, so I had seen her. But no medium can capture what it is to be in someone's presence. Certainly not someone like her. Someone who makes you feel important simply because she's choosing to look at you. There was something stately about her at the age of 28. She was mature and dignified. She looked like the kind of person who knew exactly who she was. She stepped forward and took John Braverman's arm. In a tux that seemed to strain at his broad shoulders, John looked as all-American as a husk of corn. They were a gorgeous couple, no matter how false it all was. "Ev, you're staring," Harry said as he pushed me into the theater. "Sorry," I said, "thank you." As we took our seats, we smiled and waved to everyone seated around us. Joy and Rex were a few rows behind us, and I waved politely, knowing people were watching, knowing that if I ran up and hugged them, people might be confused. When we sat down, Harry said, "If you win, will you talk to her?" I laughed. "And gloat?" "No, but you'd have the upper hand that you seem to so desperately want." "She left me." "You slept with someone." "For her." Harry frowned at me as if I was missing the point. "Fine, if I win, I'll talk to her." "Thank you." "Why are you thanking me?" "Because I want you to be happy, and it appears I have to reward you for doing things in your own favor." "Well, if she wins, I'm not saying a single word to her." "If she wins," Harry said delicately, "which is a big if, and she comes and talks to you, I will hold you down and force you to listen and speak back." I couldn't look directly at him. I was feeling defensive. "It's a moot point anyway," I said. "Everyone knows they're going to give it to Ruby because they feel bad she didn't get it last year for the dangerous flight." "They might not," Harry said. Yeah, I told him, "and I've got a bridge in Brooklyn to sell you." But when the lights dimmed and the host came out, I was not thinking that my chances were slim. I was just delusional enough to think the Academy might finally give me a goddamn Oscar. When they called out the nominees for Best Actress, I scanned the audience for Celia. I spotted her the very same moment she spotted me. We locked eyes, and then the presenter didn't say Evelyn or Celia, he said Ruby. When my heart sank into my chest, aching and heavy, I was mad at myself for believing I had a chance. And then I wondered if Celia was okay. Harry held my hand and squeezed it. I hoped John was squeezing Celia's. I excused myself to the bathroom. Bonnie Lakeland was washing her hands as I came in. She gave me a smile, and then she left, and I was alone. I sat in a stall and closed the door. I let myself cry. "Evelyn?" You don't spend years pining away for one voice, not to notice it when it finally appears. Celia? I said. My back was to the stall door. I wiped my eyes. I saw you come in here, she said. I thought it might be a sign that you were upset. I'm trying to be happy for Ruby, I said, laughing just a little bit as I used a piece of toilet paper to carefully dry my eyes. But it's not exactly my style. Mine either, she said. I opened the door, and there she was, blue dress, red hair, small stature, with a presence that filled the whole room. And when her eyes set on me, I knew she still loved me. I could see it in the way her pupils widened and softened. You're as gorgeous as ever, she said, as she leaned against the sink, her arms holding her weight behind her. There was always something intoxicating about the way Celia looked at me. I felt like a rare steak in front of a tiger. You're not so bad yourself, I said. We probably shouldn't be caught in here together, Celia said. Why not? I asked. Because I suspect more than a few people seated in there know what we once got up to, she said. I know you'd hate for them to think we were up to it again. This was a test. I knew it, she knew it. If I said the right thing, if I told her I didn't care what they thought, if I told her I'd make love to her in the middle of the stage in front of all of them, I just might be able to have her back. I let myself think about it for a moment. I let myself think about waking up tomorrow to her cigarette and coffee breath. But I wanted her to admit it wasn't all me, that she had played a part in our demise. Or maybe you just don't want to be seen with what was the word you used? I believe it was whore? Celia laughed and looked down at the floor and then back up at me. What do you want me to say? That I was wrong? I was. I wanted to hurt you like you hurt me. But I never meant to hurt you, I said. Never once would I have done a single thing to hurt you on purpose. You were ashamed to love me. Absolutely not, I said. That is absolutely untrue. Well, you certainly went to great lengths to hide it. I did what had to be done to protect both of us. Debatable. So debate it with me, I said, instead of running away again. I didn't run far, Evelyn. You could have caught up with me if you wanted to. I don't like being played, Celia. I told you that the first time we went out for milkshakes. She shrugged. You play everyone else. I have never claimed that I wasn't a hypocrite. How do you do that? Celia said. Do what? Act so cavalier about things that are sacred to other people. Because other people have got nothing to do with me. Celia scoffed, somewhat gently, and looked down at her hands. Except you, I said. I was rewarded with the sight of her looking up at me. I care about you, I said. You cared about me. I shook my head. No, I didn't misspeak. You certainly moved on fast enough with Rex North. I frowned at her. Celia, you know better than that. So it was fake. Every moment. Have you been with anyone else? Any men? She asked. She was always jealous of the men, worried she couldn't compete. I was jealous of the women, worried I wouldn't compare. I've had a good time, I said, as I'm sure you've had. John isn't... I'm not talking about John, but I'm sure you haven't kept chaste. I was fishing for information that might break my heart, a flaw of the human condition. No, she said, you're right about that. Men? I asked, hoping the answer was yes. If it was men, I knew it didn't mean anything to her. She shook her head, and my heart broke just a little bit more, like a tear that deepens from strain. Anyone I know? None of them were famous, she said. None of them meant anything to me. I touched them and thought of what it felt like to touch you. My heart both ached and swelled to hear it. You shouldn't have left me, Celia. You shouldn't have let me leave. And with that I had no more fight in me. My heart cried out the truth through my throat. I know that, I know. Sometimes things happen so quickly, you aren't sure when you even realize they were about to begin. 1 minute she was leaning against the sink, the next her hands were on my face, her body pressed against me, her lips between mine. She tasted like the musky creaminess of thick lipstick and the sharp, spiced sting of rum. I was lost in her, in the feel of her on me once again, the sheer joy of her attention, the glory of knowing she loved me. And then the door was flung open, and the wives of 2 producers walked in. We broke apart. Celia pretended she had been washing her hands, and I moved to one of the mirrors and fixed my makeup. The 2 women talked together, caught up in their conversation, barely noticing us. They entered 2 stalls, and I looked at Celia. She looked at me. I watched her turn off the faucet and take a towel. I worried that she might walk right out the bathroom door. But she didn't. One of the wives left, and then the other. We were finally alone again. Listening closely, we could tell the show had come back from a commercial break. I grabbed Celia and kissed her. I pushed her up against the door. I couldn't get enough of her. I needed her. She was as much of a fix to me as any drug. Before I even stopped to consider the danger, I lifted her dress and slipped my hand up her thigh. I held her against the door, I kissed her, and with one hand I touched her the way I knew she liked. She moaned slightly and put her hand over her mouth. I kissed her neck, and the 2 of us, our bodies tightly wound, shuddered against the door. We could have been caught at any moment. If one woman in the whole auditorium chose to visit the ladies' room during those 7 minutes, we'd have lost everything we'd worked so hard for. That is how Celia and I forgave each other, and how we knew we couldn't live without each other, because now we both knew what we were willing to risk just to be together.
Photo moment. August 14th, 1967. Evelyn Hugo weds producer Harry Cameron. 5th time's a charm? Evelyn Hugo and producer Harry Cameron married last Saturday during a ceremony on the beaches of Capri. Evelyn wore an off-white silk gown and had her long blonde hair down and parted in the middle. Harry, known for being one of the better-dressed Hollywood players, wore a cream-colored linen suit. Celia St. James, America's sweetheart, attended as the maid of honor, and her fabulous hubby John Braverman served as the best man. Harry and Evelyn have been working together since the 50s, when Evelyn came to fame in such hits as Father and Daughter and Little Women. They admitted they were having an affair late last year when they were caught in flagrante while Evelyn was still married to Rex North. Rex is now married to Joy Nathan and the proud papa of their little girl, Violet North. We're glad that Evelyn and Harry have decided to finally make it official. After such a shocking beginning to their relationship and a long engagement, all we can say is, it's about time.
Celia got absolutely smashed during the wedding. She was having a hard time not being jealous, even though she knew the whole thing was fake. Her own husband was standing next to Harry, for crying out loud. And we all knew what we were. 2 men sleeping together, married to 2 women sleeping together. We were 4 beards. And what I thought as I said, I do, was, it's all beginning now. Real life, our life. We're finally going to be a family. Harry and John were in love. Celia and I were sky high. When we got back from Italy, I sold my mansion in Beverly Hills. Harry sold his. We bought this place in Manhattan on the Upper East Side, just down the street from Celia and John. Before I agreed to move, I had Harry look into whether my father was still alive. I wasn't sure I could live in the same city he lived in, wasn't sure I could handle the idea of running into him. But when Harry's assistant searched for him, I learned that my father had died in 1959 of a heart attack. What little he owned was absorbed by the state when no one came forward to claim it. My first thought when I heard he was gone was, so that's why he never tried to come after me for money. And my second was, how sad that I'm certain that's all he'd ever want. I put it out of my head, signed the paperwork on the apartment, and celebrated the purchase with Harry. I was free to go wherever I wanted, and what I wanted was to move to the Upper East Side of Manhattan. I persuaded Louisa to join us. This apartment might be within a long walk's distance, but I was 1,000,000 miles away from Hell's Kitchen. And I was world famous, married, in love, and so rich it sometimes made me sick. A month after we moved to town, Celia and I took a taxi to Hell's Kitchen and walked around the neighborhood. It looked so different from when I left. I brought her to the sidewalk just below my old building and pointed at the window that used to be mine. "Right there," I said, "on the 5th floor." Celia looked at me with compassion for all I had been through when I lived there, for all I had done for myself since then, and then she calmly, confidently took my hand. I bristled, unsure if we should be touching in public, scared of what people would do. But the rest of the people on the street just kept on walking, kept on living their lives, almost entirely unaware of or uninterested in the two famous women holding hands on the sidewalk. Celia and I spent our nights together in this apartment. Harry spent his nights with John at their place. We went out to dinner in public, the four of us looking like two pairs of heterosexuals, without a heterosexual in the bunch. The tabloids called us America's favorite double daters. I even heard rumors that the four of us were swingers, which wasn't that crazy for that period of time. It really makes you think, doesn't it, that people were so eager to believe we were swapping spouses, but would have been scandalized to know we were monogamous and queer. I'll never forget the morning after the Stonewall riots. Harry was at rapt attention, watching the news. John was on the phone all day with friends of his who lived downtown. Celia was pacing the living room floor, her heart racing. She believed everything was going to change after that night. She believed that because gay people had announced themselves, had been proud enough to admit who they were, and strong enough to stand up, attitudes were going to change. I remember sitting out on our rooftop patio looking southward and realizing that Celia, Harry, John, and I weren't alone. It seems silly to say now, but I was so self-involved, so singularly focused, that I rarely took time to think of the people out there like myself. That isn't to say that I wasn't aware of the way the country was changing. Harry and I campaigned for Bobby Kennedy. Celia posed with Vietnam protesters on the cover of Effect. John was a vocal supporter of the civil rights movement, and I had been a very public supporter of the work of Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. But this was different. This was our people. And here they were, revolting against the police in the name of their right to be themselves, while I was sitting in a golden prison of my own making. I was out on the terrace, directly in the sun, on the afternoon after the initial riots, wearing high-waisted jeans and a black sleeveless top, drinking a Gibson, and I started crying when I realized those men were willing to fight for a dream I had never even allowed myself to envision. A world where we could be ourselves, without fear and without shame. Those men were braver and more hopeful than I was. There were simply no other words for it. "There's a plan to riot again tonight," John said as he joined me on the patio. He had such an intimidating physical presence, more than 6 feet tall, 225 pounds, with a tight crew cut. He looked like a guy you didn't want to mess with, but anyone who knew him, and especially those of us who loved him, knew he was the first guy you could mess with. He may have been a warrior on the football field, but he was the sweetheart of our foursome. He was the guy who asked how you slept the night before, the guy who always remembered the smallest thing you said 3 weeks ago. And he took it on as his job to protect Celia and Harry, and by extension me. John and I loved the same people, and so we loved each other. And we also loved playing gin rummy. I can't tell you how many nights I stayed up late finishing a hand of cards with John, the two of us deadly competitive, trading off who was the gloating winner and who was the sore loser. "We should go down there," Celia said, joining us. John took a seat in a chair in the corner. Celia sat on the arm of the chair I was in. "We should support them. We should be a part of this." I could hear Harry calling John's name from the kitchen. "We're out here," I yelled to him at the same moment as John said, "I'm on the patio." Soon Harry appeared in the doorway. "Harry, don't you think we should go down there?" Celia said. She lit a cigarette, took a drag, and handed it to me. I was already shaking my head. John outright told her no. "What do you mean, no?" Celia said. "You're not going down there," John said. "You can't. None of us can." "Of course I can," she said, looking to me to back her up. "Sorry," I said, giving her the cigarette back. "I'm with John on this." "Harry?" she said, hoping to make one final successful plea. Harry shook his head. "We go down there, all we do is attract attention away from the cause and toward us. The story becomes about whether we're homosexuals and not about the rights of homosexuals." Celia put the cigarette to her lips and inhaled. She had a sour look on her face as she blew the smoke into the air. "So what do we do then? We can't sit here and do nothing. We can't let them fight our fight for us." "We give them what we have and they don't," Harry said. "Money," I said, following his train of thought. John nodded. "I'll call Peter. He'll know how we can fund them. He'll know who needs resources." "We should have been doing that all along," Harry said. "So let's just do it from now on, no matter what happens tonight, no matter what course this fight takes. Let's just decide here and now that our job is to fund." "I'm in," I said. "Yeah," John nodded, "of course." "Okay," Celia said, "if you're sure that's the way we can do the most good." "It is," Harry said. "I'm sure of it." We started filtering money privately that day, and I've continued to do so the rest of my life. In the pursuit of a great cause, I think people can be of service in a number of different ways. I always felt that my way was to make a lot of money and then channel it to the groups that needed it. It's a bit self-serving, that logic, I know that, but because of who I was, because of the sacrifices I made to hide parts of myself, I was able to give more money than most people ever see in their entire lifetime. I am proud of that. But it does not mean I wasn't conflicted. And of course a lot of the time that ambivalence was even more personal than it was political. I knew it was imperative that I hide, and yet I did not believe I should have to. But accepting that something is true isn't the same as thinking that it is just. Celia won her second Oscar in 1970 for her role as a woman who cross-dresses to serve as a World War I soldier in the film Our Men. I could not be in Los Angeles with her that night because I was shooting Jade Diamond in Miami. I was playing a prostitute living in the same apartment as a drunk. But Celia and I both knew that even if I had been free as a bird, I could not go to the Academy Awards on her arm. That evening, Celia called me after she was home from the ceremony and all the parties. I screamed into the phone. I was so happy for her. "You've done it," I said. "Twice now, you've done it." "Can you believe it?" she said. "2 of them." "You deserve them. The whole world should be giving you an Oscar every day as far as I'm concerned." "I wish you were here," she said petulantly. I could tell she'd been drinking. I would have been drinking too if I'd been in her position, but I was irritated that she had to make things so difficult. I wanted to be there. Didn't she know that? Didn't she know that I couldn't be there? And that it killed me? Why did it always have to be about what all of this felt like for her? "I wish I was too," I told her. "But it's better this way. You know that." "Ah, yes, so that people won't know you're a lesbian." I hated being called a lesbian. Not because I thought there was anything wrong with loving a woman, mind you. No, I'd come to terms with that a long time ago. But Celia only saw things in black and white. She liked women, and only women. And I liked her. And so she often denied the rest of me. She liked to ignore the fact that I had truly loved Don Adler once. She liked to ignore the fact that I had made love to men and enjoyed it. She liked to ignore it until the very moment she decided to be threatened by it. That seemed to be her pattern. I was a lesbian when she loved me, and a straight woman when she hated me. People were just starting to talk about the idea of bisexuality, but I'm not sure I even understood that the word referred to me then. I wasn't interested in finding a label for what I already knew. I loved men. I loved Celia. I was okay with that. "Celia, stop it. I'm sick of this conversation. You're being a brat." She laughed coldly. "Exactly the same Evelyn I've been dealing with for years. Nothing's changed. You're afraid of who you are, and you still don't have an Oscar. You are what you have always been, a nice pair of tits." I let the silence hang in the air for a moment. The buzz of the phone was the only sound either of us could hear. And then Celia started crying. "I'm so sorry," she said. "I should never have said that. I don't even mean it. I'm so sorry. I've had too much to drink and I miss you, and I'm sorry that I said something so terrible." "It's fine," I said. "I should be going. It's late here, you understand. Congratulations again, sweetheart." I hung up before she could reply. That was how it was with Celia. When you denied her what she wanted, when you hurt her, she made sure you hurt too.
"Did you ever call her on it?" I ask Evelyn. I hear the muffled sound of my phone ringing in my bag, and I know from the ringtone that it's David. I did not return his text over the weekend because I wasn't sure what I wanted to say. And then, once I got here again this morning, I put it out of my mind. I reach over and turn the ringer off. "There was no point in fighting with Celia once she got mean," Evelyn says. "If things got too tense, I tended to back off before they came to a head. I would tell her I loved her, and I couldn't live without her. And then I'd take my top off, and that usually ended the conversation." For all her posturing, Celia had one thing in common with almost every straight man in America. She wanted nothing more than to get her hands on my chest. "Did it stick with you, though?" I ask. "Those words?" "Of course it did. Look, I'd be the first person to say back when I was young that all I was a nice pair of tits. The only currency I had was my sexuality, and I used it like money. I wasn't well educated when I got to Hollywood. I wasn't book smart, I wasn't powerful, I wasn't a trained actress. What did I have to be good at other than being beautiful? And taking pride in your beauty is a damning act, because you allow yourself to believe that the only thing notable about yourself is something with a very short shelf life. She goes on. When Celia said that to me, I had crossed into my 30s. I wasn't sure I had many more good years left, to be honest. I thought, sure, Celia would keep getting work because people were hiring her for her talent. I wasn't so sure they would continue hiring me once the wrinkles set in, once my metabolism slowed down. So yeah, it hurt a lot. But you had to know you were talented, I tell her. You had been nominated for an Academy Award 3 times by that point. You're using reason, Evelyn says, smiling at me. It doesn't always work.
In 1974, on my 36th birthday, Harry, Celia, John, and I all went out to the Palace. It was supposedly the most expensive restaurant in the world during that time, and I was the sort of person who liked being extravagant and absurd. I look back on it now, and I wonder where I got off, throwing money around so casually, as if the fact that it came easily to me meant I had no responsibility to value it. I find it mildly mortifying now. The caviar, the private planes, the staff big enough to populate a baseball team. But the Palace it was. We posed for pictures, knowing they would end up in some tabloid or another. Celia bought us a bottle of Dom Perignon. Harry put back 4 Manhattans himself, and when the dessert came with a lit candle in the middle, the 3 of them sang for me as people looked on. Harry was the only one who had a piece of the cake. Celia and I were watching our figures, and John was on a strict regimen that had him mostly eating protein. "At least have a bite, Ev," John said good-naturedly as he took the plate away from Harry and pushed it toward me. "It's your birthday, for crying out loud." I raised an eyebrow and grabbed a fork, using it to scrape a forkful of the chocolate fudge icing. "When you're right," I said to him. "He just doesn't think I should have it," Harry said. John laughed. 2 birds with 1 stone. Celia lightly tapped her fork against her glass. Okay, she said. "Small speech time." She was due to shoot a film in Montana the following week. She'd postponed the start date so she could be with me that night. "To Evelyn," she said, lifting her glass in the air, "who has lit up every goddamn room she ever walked into, and who, day after day, makes us feel like we're living in a dream." Later that night, as Celia and John went out to hail a cab, Harry gently helped me put my jacket on. "Do you realize that I'm the longest marriage you've had?" he asked. By that point, Harry and I had been married for almost 7 years. "And also the best," I said, "bar none." I was thinking. I already knew what he was thinking, or at least I suspected what he was thinking because I'd been thinking it too. I was 36. If we were going to have a baby, I'd put it off for as long as I could. Sure, there were women having babies later than that, but it wasn't very common, and I had spent the last few years staring at babies in strollers, unable to focus my eyes on anything else when they were around. I would pick up friends' babies and hold them tightly until the very moment their mothers demanded them back. I thought of what my own child might be like. I thought of how it would feel to bring a life into the world, to give the 4 of us another being to focus on. But if I was going to do it, I had to get moving. And our decision to have a baby wasn't really just a 2-person conversation. It was a 4-person conversation. "Go on," I said, as we made our way to the front of the restaurant. "Say it." "A baby," Harry said. "You and me." "Have you discussed it with John?" I asked. "Not specifically," he said. "Have you discussed it with Celia?" No. But are you ready? He said. My career was going to take a hit. There was no avoiding it. I'd go from being a woman to being a mother, and somehow those things appeared mutually exclusive in Hollywood. My body would change. I'd have months where I couldn't work. It made absolutely no sense to say, yes. Yes, I said, I am. Harry nodded. Me too. Okay, I said, considering the next steps. So we'll talk to John and Celia. Yeah, Harry said, I suppose we will. And if everyone is on board, I asked, stopping before we got out to the sidewalk. We'll get started, Harry said, stopping with me. I know the most obvious solution is adoption, I said, but you think we should have a biological child? I do, I said. I don't want anyone trying to claim we adopted because we had something to hide. Harry nodded. I get it, he said. I want a biological child, too. Someone half you, half me. I'm with you on this. I raised my eyebrow. You do realize how babies are made? I asked him. He smiled and then leaned in and whispered, There is a very small part of me that has wanted to bed you since I met you, Evelyn Hugo. I laughed and hit him on the arm. No, there is not. A small part, Harry said, defending himself. It goes against all my greater instincts, but it is there nonetheless. I smiled. Well, I said, we will keep that part to ourselves. Harry laughed and put out his hand. I shook it. Once again, Evelyn, you've got yourself a deal. Would the baby be raised by the both of you? Celia asked. We were lying in bed, naked. My back was lined with sweat, my hairline damp. I rolled over onto my stomach and put my hand on Celia's chest. The movie she was doing next was making her a brunette. I found myself transfixed by the golden red of her hair, desperate to know that they would dye it back properly, that she would return to me looking exactly like herself. Yes, I said, of course, it would be ours. We'd raise it together. And where would I fit into all of this? Where would John? Wherever you want to. I don't know what that means. It means that we would figure it out as we go. Celia considered my words and stared at the ceiling. This is something you want? Celia asked finally. Yes, I told her. Very badly. Is it a problem for you that I have never wanted that? She asked. That you don't want children? Yes. No, I suppose not. Is it a problem for you that I cannot give you that? Her voice was starting to crack, and her lips were starting to quiver. When Celia was on screen and needed to cry, she would squint her eyes and cover her face, but they were fake tears, generated out of nothing, for nothing. When she really cried, her face remained painfully still, except for the corners of her lips and the water brimming in her eyes that stuck to her lashes. Honey, I said, pulling her toward me, of course not. I want to give you everything you've ever wanted, and you want that, and I can't give it to you. Celia, no, I said. It's not like that at all. It's not? You have given me more than I ever thought I could have in one life. You're sure? I'm positive. She smiled. You love me? She said. Oh, my God, what an understatement, I told her. You love me so much you can't see straight? I love you so much that when I sometimes get a look at all the crazy fan mail you get, I think, well, sure, that makes sense. I want to collect her eyelashes, too. Celia laughed and ran her hand across my upper arm as she stared at the ceiling. I want you to be happy, she said, when she finally looked at me. You should know that Harry and I will have to—" "There's no other way?" she asked. "I thought women were getting pregnant by men just using their sperm now." I nodded. "I think there are other ways," I said, "but I'm not confident in the security of the situation. Or rather, I don't know how to ensure that no one finds out. That's how we did it." "You're saying you're going to have to make love to Harry," Celia said. "You are the person I'm in love with. You are the person I make love to. Harry and I are merely making a baby." Celia looked at me, reading my face. "You're sure about that?" "Absolutely positive." She looked back up at the ceiling. She didn't talk for a while. I watched her eyes as they moved back and forth. I watched her breathing as it slowed. And then she turned to face me. "If it's what you want, if you want a baby, then have a baby. We will figure it out. I will make it work. I can be an aunt, Aunt Celia, and I'll find a way to be okay with it all." "And I'll help you," I said. She laughed. "How do you suppose you'll do that?" "I can think of one way to make it all a bit more palatable for you," I said, kissing her neck. She liked to be kissed right below and just behind her ear, where her earlobe hit her neck. "Oh, you are too much," she said, but she didn't say anything else. She did not stop me as I moved my hand across her breasts, down her stomach, between her legs. She moaned and pulled me closer to her, and she ran her own hand down my body. She touched me while I touched her, soft at first and then harder, faster. "I love you," she said, breathless. "I love you," I said back to her. She looked into my eyes and made me feel rapture, and that night, in giving of herself, she gave me a baby.
Photo moment. May 23rd, 1975. Evelyn Hugo and Harry Cameron have a baby girl. Evelyn Hugo is finally a mother. At the age of 37, the stunning bombshell is adding parent to her resume. Connor Margot Cameron, 6 pounds, 9 ounces, was born late last Tuesday at Mount Sinai Hospital. Dad Harry Cameron is said to be over the moon about the little bambina. With a string of hits behind them, Evelyn and Harry are sure to consider the littlest Cameron their most exciting co-production yet.
I was in love with Connor from the moment she looked at me. With her full head of hair and her round blue eyes, I thought for a moment she looked just like Celia. Connor was always hungry and hated being alone. She wanted nothing more than to lie on me, quietly sleeping. She absolutely adored Harry. During those first few months, Celia shot 2 movies back-to-back, both out of town. One of them, The Buyer, was a movie I knew she was passionate about, but the second, a mob movie, was exactly the sort of work she hated. On top of the violence and darkness, it shot for 8 weeks, 4 in Los Angeles and 4 in Sicily. When the offer came in, I was expecting her to turn it down. Instead, she took the part, and John decided to go with her. During the time they were gone, Harry and I lived almost exactly like a traditional married couple. Harry made me bacon and eggs for breakfast and ran my baths. I fed the baby and changed her nearly hourly. We had help, of course. Louisa was taking care of the house. She was changing the sheets, doing the laundry, cleaning up after all of us. On her days off, it was Harry who stepped in. It was Harry who told me I looked beautiful, even though we both knew I'd seen better days. It was Harry who read script after script, looking for the perfect project for me to take on once Connor was old enough. It was Harry who slept next to me every night, who held my hand as we fell asleep, who held me when I was convinced I was a terrible mother after I scratched Connor's cheek, giving her a bath. Harry and I had always been close, had long been family, but during that time, I truly felt like a wife. I felt like I had a husband, and I grew to love him even more. Connor and that time with her bonded Harry and me in ways I could never imagine. He was there to celebrate the good and support me during the bad. It was around that time that I started to believe that friendships could be written in the stars. If there are all different types of soulmates, I told Harry one afternoon when the two of us were sitting out on the patio with Connor, then you are one of mine. Harry was wearing a pair of shorts and no shirt. Connor was lying on his chest. He hadn't shaved that morning and his stubble was coming in. It had just the slightest gray patch under his chin. Looking at him with her, I realized how much they looked alike. Same long lashes, same pert lips. Harry held Connor to his chest with one hand and grabbed my free hand with the other. I am absolutely positive that I need you more than I've ever needed another living soul, he said. The only exception being Connor, I said. We both smiled. For the rest of our lives, we would say that. The only exception to absolutely everything was Connor. When Celia and John came home, things went back to normal. Celia lived with me, Harry lived with John. Connor stayed at my place with the assumption that Harry would come by days and nights to be with us, to care for us. But that first morning, just around the time Harry was due for breakfast, Celia put on her robe and headed to the kitchen. She started making oatmeal. I had just come down, still in my pajamas. I was sitting at the island, nursing Connor, when Harry walked in. "Oh," he said, looking at Celia, noticing the pan. Louisa was washing dishes in the sink. I was coming in to make bacon and eggs. "I've got it," Celia said. "A nice warm bowl of oatmeal for everybody. There's enough for you, too, if you're hungry." Harry looked at me, unsure what to do. I looked at him, equally uncertain. Celia just kept stirring, and then she grabbed 3 bowls and set them down. She put the pot in the sink for Louisa to wash. It occurred to me then how odd this system was. Harry and I paid Louisa's salary, but Harry didn't even live here. Celia and John paid the mortgage on the home Harry lived in. Harry sat down and grabbed the spoon in front of him. He and I dug into our oatmeal at the same time. When Celia's back was to us, we looked at each other and grimaced. Harry mouthed something to me, and even though I could barely read his lips, I knew what he was saying because it was exactly what I was thinking. So bland. Celia turned back to us and offered us some raisins. We both took her up on it, and then the 3 of us sat in the kitchen, eating our oatmeal quietly, all aware that Celia had staked her claim. I was hers. She would make my breakfast. Harry was a visitor. Connor started crying, so Harry took her and changed her. Louisa went downstairs to grab the laundry, and when we were alone, Celia said, "Max Girard is doing a movie called 3 a.m. for Paramount. It's supposed to be a real art house piece, and I think you should do it." I had kept in touch with Max, on and off, since he directed me in Bout-en-Train. I never forgot that it was with him that I was able to catapult my name to the top again, but I knew Celia couldn't stand him. He was too overt in his interest in me, too salacious about it. Celia used to jokingly call him Pepe Le Pew. "You think I should do a movie with Max?" Celia nodded. "They offered it to me, but it makes more sense for you. Regardless of the fact that I think he's a Neanderthal, I can recognize that the man makes good movies, and this role is exactly your thing." "What do you mean?" Celia got up and took my bowl with hers. She rinsed them both in the sink and then turned back to me, leaning against it. "It's a sexy part. They need a real bombshell." I shook my head. I'm someone's mother now. The whole world knows it. Celia shook her head. That's exactly why you have to do it. Why? Because you're a sexual woman, Evelyn. You're sensual, and you're beautiful, and you're desirable. Don't let them take that away from you. Don't let them desexualize you. Don't let your career be on their terms. What do you want to do? You want to play a mom in every role you take from now on? You want to play only nuns and teachers? No, I said, of course not. I want to play everything. So play everything, she said. Be bold. Do what no one expects you to do. People will say it's unbecoming. The Evelyn I love doesn't care about that. I closed my eyes and listened to her, nodding. She wanted me to do it for me. I really believe that. She knew I wouldn't be happy being limited, being relegated. She knew I wanted to continue to make people talk, to tantalize, to surprise. But the part she wasn't mentioning, the part I'm not even sure she truly understood, was that she also wanted me to do it because she didn't want me to change. She wanted to be with a bombshell. It's always been fascinating to me how things can be simultaneously true and false, how people can be good and bad all in one, how someone can love you in a way that is beautifully selfless while serving themselves ruthlessly. It is why I loved Celia. She was a very complicated woman who always kept me guessing. And here she had surprised me one more time. She had said, "Go have a baby," but she had meant to add, "Just don't act like a mother." Fortunately and unfortunately for her, I had absolutely no intention of being told what to do or of being manipulated into a single thing. So I read the script, and I took a few days and thought about it. I asked Harry what he thought, and then I woke up one morning and thought, I want the part. I want it because I want to show I'm still my own woman. I called Max Girard and I told him I was interested if he was interested. And he was. "But I'm surprised you want to do this," Max said. "You are 100% sure." "Is there nudity?" I asked. "I'm okay with the idea. Really, I look fantastic, Max. It's not a problem." I did not look fantastic, nor did I feel fantastic. It was a problem, but it was a solvable problem. And solvable problems aren't really problems, are they? "No," Max said, laughing. "Evelyn, you could be 97 years old, and the whole world would line up to see your chest." "Then what are you talking about?" "Done," he said. "Done who?" "Your part," he said. "The whole movie, all of it." "What?" "You're playing opposite Don Adler."
Why did you agree to do it? I ask her. Why not say you wanted him cut from the film? Well, first of all, you don't go throwing your weight around unless you're sure you'll win, Evelyn says. And I was only about 80% sure that if I pitched a fit, Max would fire him. And second of all, it seemed mildly cruel, to be honest. Don was not doing well. He hadn't had a hit in years, and most younger moviegoers didn't know who he was. He was divorced from Ruby, hadn't remarried, and the rumor was that his drinking had gotten out of control. So you felt bad for him? Your abuser? Relationships are complex, Evelyn says. People are messy, and love can be ugly. I'm inclined to always err on the side of compassion. You're saying you had compassion for what he was going through? I'm saying you should have a little compassion for how complicated it must have been for me. Cut down to size. I find myself staring at the floor, unable to look at her. I'm sorry, I say. I haven't been in that situation before, and I don't know what I was thinking, making any sort of judgment. I apologize. Evelyn smiles gently, accepting my apology. I can't speak for all people who have been hit by someone they love. But what I can tell you is that forgiveness is different from absolution. Don was no longer a threat to me. I was not scared of him. I felt powerful and free. So I told Max I'd meet with him. Celia was supportive, but also hesitant once she learned Don had been cast. Harry, while cautious, trusted my ability to handle the situation. So my representatives called Don's people, and we set a time and place for the next time I was in L.A. I had suggested the bar at the Beverly Hills Hotel, but Don's team changed it at the last minute to Cantor's Deli. That's how I ended up seeing my ex-husband for the first time in more than 15 years, over a pair of Reubens.
"I'm sorry, Evelyn," Don said when he sat down. I had already ordered an iced tea and eaten half of a sour pickle. I thought he was apologizing for being late. "It's only 1:05, I said. "It's fine." "No," he said, shaking his head. He looked pale, but also a bit thinner than some of his recent photos. The years we had been apart had not been good to Don. His face had bloated, and his waistline had widened, but he was still heads and tails more handsome than anyone else in the place. Don was the sort of man who was always going to be handsome, no matter what happened to him. His good looks were just that loyal. "I'm sorry," he said. The emphasis, the meaningfulness of it hit me. It caught me off guard. The waitress came by and asked for his drink order. He didn't order a martini or a beer. He ordered a Coca-Cola. When she left, I found myself unsure what to say to him. "I'm sober," he said. "Have been for 256 days. "That many, huh?" I said as I took a sip of my iced tea. "I was a drunk, Evelyn. I know that now." "You were also a cheater and a pig," I said. Don nodded. "I know that, too. And I'm deeply sorry." I had flown all the way here to see if I could do a movie with him. I had not come to be apologized to. The thought had never occurred to me. I merely assumed I would use him this time the way I used him back then. His name near mine would get people talking. But this repentant man in front of me was surprising and overwhelming. "What am I supposed to do with that?" I asked him. "That you're sorry. What is that supposed to mean to me?" The waitress came and took our orders. "A Reuben, please," I said, handing her the menu. If I was going to have a real conversation about this, I needed a hearty meal. "I'll have the same," Don said. She knew who we were. I could see it in the way her lips kept trying to hold back a smile. When she left, Don leaned in. "I know it doesn't make up for what I did to you," he said. "Good," I said, "because it really doesn't." "But I hope it might make you feel a little better," he said, "to know that I know I was wrong. I know you deserved better, and I'm working every day to be a better man." "Well, it's awfully late now," I said. "You being a better man does nothing for me." "I won't hurt anyone like I did then," Don said. "To you, to Ruby." My heart of ice melted briefly, and I admitted that did make me feel better. "Still," I said, "we all can't go around treating people like dog shit and then expecting that a simple 'I'm sorry' erases it." Don shook his head humbly. "Of course not," he said. "No, I know that. And if your movies hadn't tanked, and Ari Sullivan hadn't dropped you like you got him to drop me, you'd probably still be living high on the hog, drunk as a skunk." Don nodded. "Probably. I'm sorry to say you are most likely right about that." I wanted more. Did I want him to grovel, to cry? I wasn't sure. I just knew I wasn't getting it. "Let me just say this," Don said. "I loved you from the moment I saw you. I loved you madly, and I ruined it because I turned into a man I'm not proud of. And because I ruined it the way I did, because I was awful at treating you the way you deserved to be treated, I am sorry." Sometimes I think about going back to our wedding day and wanting to do it all over again, wanting to fix my mistakes so that you never have to go through what I put you through. I know I can't do that, but what I can do is look you in the eye and tell you from the very bottom of my heart that I know how incredible you are. I know how great we could have been together. I know that everything we both lost was my fault. I am dedicated to never behaving that poorly again, and I am truly, truly sorry. In all my years after Don, all my movies, all my marriages, I had never once wanted to go back in time in the hopes that Don and I could get it right. My life since Don had been a story of my own making, a mess and a joy of my own decisions, and a string of experiences that landed me with everything I ever wanted. I was okay. I felt safe. I had a beautiful daughter, a devoted husband, and the love of a good woman. I had money and fame. I had a gorgeous house in a city I had reclaimed. What could Don Adler take from me? If I had come to see if I could stand him, I found that I could. There was not a bone in my body that was afraid of him. And then I realized if that was true, what did I have to lose? I did not say the words, "I forgive you," to Don Adler. I simply took my wallet out of my purse and said, "Do you want to see a picture of Connor?" He smiled and nodded, and when I showed him her photo, he laughed. "She looks just like you," he said. "I'll take that as a compliment." "I don't think there's any other way to take it. I think every woman in this country would like to look like Evelyn Hugo." I threw my head back and laughed. When our Reubens were half-eaten and taken away by the waitress, I told him I'd do the movie. "That's great," he said. "Really great to hear. I think you and I could really... I think we can really give them a show." "We're not friends, Don," I said. "I want to be clear on that." Don nodded. "Okay," he said. "I understand. But I think we can be friendly." Don smiled. "I'd be honored by friendly." Just before shooting was set to commence, Harry turned 45. He said he didn't want a big night out or any sort of formal plans. He just wanted a nice day with all of us. So John, Celia, and I planned a picnic in the park. Louisa packed us lunch, Celia made sangria, John went down to the sporting goods store and got us an extra-large umbrella to shade us from not only the sun but also passers-by. On the way home he got the bright idea to buy us wigs and sunglasses, too. That afternoon the three of us told Harry we had a surprise for him, and we led him into the park, Connor riding on his back. She loved to be strapped to him. She would laugh as he bounced her while he walked. I took his hand and dragged him with us. "Where are we going?" he said. "Someone at least give me a hint." "I'll give you a small one," Celia said as we were crossing Fifth Avenue. "No," John said, shaking his head. "No hints. He's too good with hints. It takes all the fun out of it." "Connor, where's everyone taking Daddy?" Harry said. I watched as Connor laughed at the sound of her name. When Celia walked through the entrance to the park, not even a block from our apartment, Harry spotted the blanket already set out with the umbrella and the picnic baskets, and he smiled. "A picnic?" he said. "Simple family picnic, just the 5 of us," I said. Harry smiled. He closed his eyes for a moment, as if he'd reached heaven. "Absolutely perfect," he said. "I made the sangria," Celia said. "Louisa made the food, obviously." "Obviously," Harry said, laughing. "And John got the umbrella." John bent down and grabbed the wigs. "And these." He handed me a curly black one and gave Celia a short blonde one. Harry took a red one, and John put on the long brown one that made him look like a hippie. We all laughed as we looked at one another, but I was surprised to see just how realistic they managed to be, and when I put on the coordinating pair of sunglasses, I felt a little freer. If you got the wigs and Celia made the sangria, what did Evelyn do? Harry asked as he took Connor off his back and put her on the blanket. I grabbed her and helped her sit up. Good question, John said, smiling. You'd have to ask her. Oh, I helped, I said. Actually, yeah, Evelyn, what did you do? Celia said. I looked up to see the three of them all staring at me teasingly. I gestured vaguely to the picnic basket. You know. No, Harry said, laughing. I don't know. Listen, I've been very busy, I said. Uh-huh, Celia said. Oh, all right. I lifted Connor up as she started to frown. I knew it meant tears were coming any moment. I didn't do a damn thing. The three of them started laughing at me, and then Connor started laughing too. John opened the basket, Celia poured wine, Harry leaned over and kissed Connor's forehead. It was one of the last times we were all together, laughing, smiling, happy, a family. Because after that, I ruined it. Don and I were in the middle of shooting 3 a.m. in New York. Louisa, Celia, and Harry were trading off watching Connor while I was at work. The days were longer than we anticipated, and the shoot ran long. I played Patricia, a woman in love with a drug addict, Mark, played by Don. And every day I could see that he was not the old Don I knew, showing up to set and saying some lines with charm. This was striking, superlative, raw acting. He was pulling from his life, and he was putting it on film. On set, you really hope that it's all coming together into something magical in the camera lens, but there's never any way to know for sure. Even when Harry and I were producing work ourselves, when we were watching the dailies so often that my eyes felt dry, and I was losing track of reality versus film, we were never 100% sure that all the parts were coming together perfectly until we saw the first cut. But on the set of 3 a.m., I just knew. I knew it was a movie that would change how people saw me, how people saw Don. I thought it might just be good enough to change lives, to get people clean. It might just be good enough to change the way movies were made. So I sacrificed. When Max wanted more days, I gave up time with Connor to be there. When Max wanted more nights, I gave up dinners and evenings with Celia. I must have called Celia almost every day from the set, apologizing for something. Apologizing that I couldn't meet her at the restaurant in time. Apologizing that I needed her to stay home and watch Connor for me. I could tell that part of her regretted pushing me to do the movie. I don't think she liked me working with my ex-husband every day. I don't think she liked me working with Max Girard every day. I don't think she liked my long hours. And I got the impression that while she loved my baby girl, babysitting wasn't exactly her idea of a good time. But she kept it to herself and supported me. When I called to say I'd be late for the millionth time, she would say, "It's okay, honey. Don't worry. Just be great." She was an excellent partner in that regard, putting me first, putting my work first. And then, toward the end of shooting, after a long day of emotional scene work, I was in my dressing room getting ready to go home when Max knocked on my door. "Hey," I said, "what's on your mind?" He looked at me with consideration and then took a seat. I remained standing, committed to leaving. "I think, Evelyn, we have something to think about." "We do?" "The love scene is next week." "I'm aware." "This movie, it is almost done." "Yes." "And I think it is missing something." "Like what?" "I think that the viewer needs to understand the raw magnetism of Patricia and Mark's attraction." "I agree. That's why I agreed to really show my breasts. You're getting what no other filmmaker, including yourself, has ever gotten from me before. I'd think you'd be thrilled." "Yes, of course I am, but I think—" We need to show that Patricia is a woman who takes what she wants, who delights in the sins of the flesh. She is right now such a martyr. She is a saint, helping Mark all through the film, standing by him. Right, because of how much she loves him. Yes, but we also need to see why she loves him. What does he give to her? What does she get from him? What are you getting at? I want us to shoot something almost no one does, which is, I want to show you screwing because you love it. His eyes were wide and excited. He was creatively enthralled. I always knew Max was a little lascivious, but this was different. This was a rebellious act. Think about it. Sex scenes are about love or power. Sure, and the purpose of the love scene next week is to show how much Patricia loves Mark, how much she believes in him, how strong their connection is. Max shakes his head. I wanted to show the audience that part of the reason Patricia loves Mark is because he makes her orgasm. I felt myself pulling back, trying to take it all in. It shouldn't have felt so scandalous, and yet it absolutely was. Women have sex for intimacy. Men have sex for pleasure. That's what culture tells us. The idea that I'd be shown to enjoy my body, to desire the male form just as strongly as I was desired, to show a woman putting her own physical pleasure at the forefront, it felt daring. What Max was talking about was a graphic portrayal of female desire, and my gut instinct was that I loved the idea. I mean, the thought of filming a graphic sex scene with Don was about as arousing to me as a bowl of bran flakes, but I wanted to push the envelope. I wanted to show a woman getting off. I liked the idea of showing a woman having sex because she wanted to be pleased, instead of being desperate to please. So, in a moment of excitement, I grabbed my coat, put out my hand, and said, I'm in. Max laughed and hopped out of his chair, taking my hand and shaking it. Fantastique, ma belle! What I should have done was tell him I had to think about it. What I should have done was tell Celia about it the moment I got home. What I should have done was give her a say. I should have given her the opportunity to express any misgivings. I should have respected that while she had no place to tell me what I could and could not do with my body, I did have a responsibility to inquire about how my actions might affect her. I should have taken her out to dinner and told her what I wanted to do, and explained why I wanted to do it. I should have made love to her that night, to show her that the only body I was truly interested in deriving pleasure from was hers. These are simply things you do. These are kindnesses you extend to the person you love when you know that your job will entail the world seeing images of you having sex with another person. I did none of that for Celia. Instead, I avoided her. I went home and checked on Connor. I went into the kitchen and ate a chicken salad Louisa had left in the fridge. Celia came in and hugged me. How was shooting? Good, I said, completely fine. And because she didn't say, how was your day? Or anything interesting happen with Max? Or even, how's next week looking? I didn't bring it up. I had 2 shots of bourbon before Max yelled, Action! The set was closed. Just me, Don, Max, the cinematographer, and a couple of guys working lighting and sound. I closed my eyes and told myself to remember how good it felt to want Don all those years ago. I thought of how sublime it was to awaken my own desire, to realize I liked sex, that it wasn't just about what men wanted, that it was about me too. I thought of how I wanted to put that seed of a thought into other women's brains. I thought of how there might be other women out there scared of their own pleasure, of their own power. I thought of what it would mean to have just one woman go home to her husband and say, "Give me what he gave her." I put myself in that place of desperate wanting, the ache of needing something only someone else can give you. I used to have that with Don. I had it then with Celia. So I closed my eyes, I focused in on myself, and I went there. Later on, people would say that Don and I were really having sex in the movie. There were all sorts of rumors that the sex was unsimulated, but those rumors were complete and utter bullshit. People just thought they saw real sex because the energy was searing, because I convinced myself in that moment that I was a woman in urgent need of him, because Don was able to remember how it felt to want me before he ever had me. That day on set, I truly let go. I was present and wild and unrestrained, more than I ever had been on film before, more than I ever have been since. It was a moment of purely imagined, reckless euphoria. When Max yelled "cut," I snapped out of it. I stood up and rushed to my robe. I blushed. Me, Evelyn Hugo, blushing. Don asked if I was all right, and I turned away from him, not wanting him to touch me. "I'm fine," I said, and then I went to my dressing room, closed the door, and bawled my eyes out. I wasn't ashamed of what I'd done. I wasn't nervous for audiences to see it. The tears that fell down my face were because I realized what I had done to Celia. I had been a person who believed she stuck by a certain code. It may not have been a code that others subscribed to, but it was one that made sense to me. And part of that code was being honest with Celia, being good to her. And this was not good to Celia. Doing what I had just done without her blessing was not good for the woman I loved. When we wrapped for the day, I walked the 50 blocks home instead of grabbing a car. I needed the time to myself. I stopped on the way and bought flowers. I called Harry from a payphone and asked him to take Connor for the night. Celia was in the bedroom when I got home, drying her hair. "I got you these," I said, handing her the bouquet of white lilies. I did not mention that the florist had said that white lilies mean "my love is pure." "Oh, my God," she said, "they are gorgeous, thank you." She smelled them and then grabbed a water glass, filled it from the tap, and put the flowers in it. "Just for a moment," she said, "until I have a chance to choose a vase." "I wanted to ask you something," I said. "Oh, boy," she said. "Are these flowers just to butter me up?" I shook my head. "No," I said. "The flowers are because I love you, because I want you to know how often I think of you, how important you are to me. I don't tell you that enough. I wanted to tell you this way with those. Guilt is a feeling I've never made much peace with. I find that when it rears its head, it brings an army. When I feel guilty for one thing, I start to see all the other things I should feel guilty for." I sat on the foot of our bed. I wanted to let you know that Max and I have discussed it, and I think the love scene in the movie will be more graphic than you and I were thinking. How graphic? Something a bit more intense, something that conveys Patricia's desperate need to be pleasured. I was lying outright to hide a lie of omission. I was crafting a new narrative in which Celia would believe that I had asked for her blessing before doing what I had already done. Her need to be pleasured? We need to see what Patricia gets out of her relationship with Mark. It's not just love, it has to be more than that. That makes sense, Celia said. You're saying it answers the question, why does she stay with him? Yeah, I said, excited that maybe she would understand. Maybe I could fix this retroactively. Exactly. So we're going to shoot an explicit scene between Don and me. I'll be mostly nude. For the heart of the movie to really sink in, we need to see the two main characters truly vulnerable together, connecting sexually. Celia listened as I spoke, letting the words sink in. I could see her grappling with what I was saying, trying to make it fit for her. I want you to do the movie as you want to do it, she said. Thank you. She looked down and started shaking her head. I'm feeling I don't know. I'm not sure I can do this. Knowing you're with Don all day with these long nights and I never see you and sex. Sex is sacred between us. I'm not sure I can stand to watch that. You won't need to watch it. But I'll know it happened. I'll know it's out there. And everyone will see it. I want to be okay with this, I really do. So be okay with it. I'm going to try. Thank you. I'm really going to try. Great. But Evelyn, I don't think I can. Just knowing that when you slept with Mick, I was sick for years afterward, thinking about the two of you together. I know. And you slept with Harry, God knows how many times, she said. I know, honey, I know, but I'm not sleeping with Don. But you have slept with him, you have. When people watch the two of you on screen, they will be watching something the two of you have already done. It's not real, I said. I know, but what you're saying to me is that you are prepared to make it look real. You're saying you're going to make it look more real than anything else any of us have done so far. Yes, I said, I guess I am saying that. She started crying. She put her head in her hands. I feel like I'm failing you, she said, but I can't do it. I can't. I know myself, and I know this is too much for me. I'll be too sick over it. I'll make myself ill thinking of you with him. She shook her head, resolved. I'm sorry. I don't have it in me. I can't handle it. I want to be stronger for you. I do. I know that if the tables were turned, you could handle it. I feel like I'm disappointing you, and I'm so sorry, Evelyn. I will work forever to make it up to you. I'll help you get any part you want, for the rest of our lives. And I'll work on getting there so that the next time this happens, I can be stronger. But please, Evelyn, I can't live through you sleeping with another man. Even if this time it only looks real, I can't do it. Please, she said, please don't do this. My heart sank. I nearly vomited. I looked down at the floor. I studied the way two planks of wood met just under my feet, how the nail heads were just the littlest bit sunken in. And then I looked up at her and said, I already did it. I sobbed, and I pleaded, and I groveled desperately on my knees, having long ago learned the lesson that you have to throw yourself at the mercy of the things you truly want. But before I was done, Celia said, all I've ever wanted was for you to be truly mine, but you've never been mine, not really. I've always had to settle for one piece of you, while the world gets the other half. I don't blame you. It doesn't make me stop loving you, but I can't do it. I can't do it, Evelyn. I can't live with my heart half broken all the time. And she walked out the door and left me. Within a week, Celia had packed up all her things at my apartment and hers and moved back to L.A. She would not answer the phone when I called. I couldn't get hold of her. Then, weeks after she left, she filed for divorce from John. When he got the papers, I swear it was as if she had served them to me directly. It was clear, in no uncertain terms, that by divorcing him, she was divorcing me. I got John to make some calls to her agent, her manager. He tracked her down at the Beverly Wilshire. I flew to Los Angeles, and I pounded on her door. I was wearing my favorite Diane von Furstenberg because Celia had once said I was irresistible in it. There were a man and a woman coming out of their hotel room, and as they walked down the hall, they couldn't stop looking at me. They knew who I was, but I refused to hide. I just kept knocking on the door. When Celia finally opened it, I looked her in the eye and didn't say a word. She stared back at me, silent, and then, with tears in my eyes, I said simply, "Please." She turned away from me. "I made a mistake," I said. "I'll never do it again." The last time we had fought like this, I had refused to apologize, and I really thought that this time, if I just admitted how wrong I was, if I gave in sincerely and with all my heart, she would forgive me. But she didn't. "I can't do it anymore," she said, as she shook her head. She was wearing high-waisted jeans and a Coca-Cola t-shirt. Her hair was long past her shoulders. She was 37, but still looked like she was in her 20s. She always had a youthfulness to her that I never really had. I was 38 then, and I was starting to look it. When she said that, I got down on my knees in the hallway of the hotel and bawled my eyes out. She pulled me inside. "Take me back, Celia," I begged her. "Take me back, and I'll give the rest of it up. I'll give up everything but Connor. I won't ever act again. I'll let the world know about us. I'm ready to give you all of me, please." Celia listened, but then she very calmly sat down in the chair by the bed and said, "Evelyn, you are not capable of giving it up, and you never will be, and it will be the tragedy of my life that I cannot love you enough to make you mine, that you cannot be loved enough to be anyone's." I stood there for a moment longer, waiting for her to say something else, but she didn't. She had nothing else to say, and there was nothing I could say that would change her mind. Facing reality, I got hold of myself, held in my tears, kissed her on her temple, and walked away. I got back on the plane to New York, hiding my pain, and it wasn't until I was back in my apartment that I lost it, sobbing as if she'd died. That's how final it felt. I had pushed her too far, and it was over.
That was truly it, I say. She was done with me, Evelyn says. What about the movie? Are you asking if it was worth it? I guess so. The movie was a huge hit. Didn't make it worth it. Don Adler won an Oscar for it, didn't he? Evelyn rolls her eyes. That bastard won an Oscar, and I wasn't even nominated. Why not? I've seen it, I say. Parts of it, at least. You're great. Really exceptional. You think I don't know that? Well, then, why weren't you nominated? Because, Evelyn says, frustrated. Because I wasn't allowed to be applauded for it. It had an X rating. It was responsible for letters to the editor at nearly every paper in the country. It was too scandalous, too explicit. It got people excited, and when they felt that way, they had to blame someone, and they blamed me. What else were they going to do? Blame the French director? The French are like that, and they weren't going to blame the newly redeemed Don Adler. They blamed the sexpot they'd created, whom they could now call a tramp. They weren't going to give me an Oscar for that. They were going to watch it alone in a dark theater, and then chastise me in public. But it didn't hurt your career, I say. You did 2 more movies the next year. I made people money. No one turns away money. They were all too happy to get me in their movies and then talk about me behind my back. Within a few years, you delivered what is considered one of the most noble performances of the decade. Yeah, but I shouldn't have had to turn it around. I did nothing wrong. Well, we know that now. People were praising you and the film as early as the mid-'80s. It's all fine in hindsight, Evelyn says. except that I spent years with a scarlet A on my chest, while women and men across the country screwed each other's brains out thinking about what the movie meant. People were shocked by the representation of a woman wanting to get fucked, and while I'm aware of the crassness of my language, it's really the only way to describe it. Patricia was not a woman who wanted to make love. She wanted to get fucked, and we showed that. And people hated how much they loved it. She's still angry. I can see it in the way her jaw tightens. You won an Oscar shortly after that. I lost Celia for that movie, she says. My life, which I loved so much, was turned upside down over that movie. Of course, I understand it was my own fault. I'm the one who filmed an explicit sex scene with my ex-husband without talking to her about it first. I'm not trying to blame other people for the mistakes I made in my own relationship, but still. Evelyn is quiet, lost in her thoughts for a moment. I want to ask you something, because I think it's important for you to speak directly about it, I say. Okay. Did being bisexual put a strain on your relationship? I want to make sure to portray her sexuality with all of its nuance, in all of its complexity. What do you mean? She asks. There is a slight edge to her voice. You lost the woman you loved because of your sexual relationships with men. I think that's relevant to your larger identity. Evelyn listens to me and considers my words. Then she shakes her head. No. I lost the woman I loved because I cared about being famous as much as I cared about her. It had nothing to do with my sexuality. But you were using your sexuality to get things from men that Celia couldn't give you. Evelyn shakes her head even more emphatically. There's a difference between sexuality and sex. I used sex to get what I wanted. Sex is just an act. Sexuality is a sincere expression of desire and pleasure. That I always kept for Celia. I hadn't thought about it like that before, I say. Being bisexual didn't make me disloyal, Evelyn says. One has nothing to do with the other, nor did it mean that Celia could only fulfill half my needs. I find myself interrupting her. I know you're not saying that, Evelyn says, but I want you to have it in my words. When Celia said she couldn't have all of me, it was because I was selfish and because I was scared of losing everything I had. Not because I had two sides of me that one person could never fulfill. I broke Celia's heart because I spent half my time loving her and the other half hiding how much I loved her. Never once did I cheat on Celia. If we're defining cheating by desiring another person and then making love to that person, I never once did that. When I was with Celia, I was with Celia. The same way any woman married to a man is with that man. Did I look at other people? Sure, just like anyone in a relationship does, but I loved Celia. And I shared my true self only with Celia. The problem was, I used my body to get other things I wanted, and I didn't stop doing that even for her. That's my tragedy. That I used my body when it was all I had, and then I kept using it even when I had other options. I kept using it even when I knew it would hurt the woman I loved. And what's more, I made her complicit in it. I put her in a position to continually have to approve of my choices at her own expense. Celia may have left me in a huff, but it was a death by 1,000 cuts. I hurt her with these tiny scratches day after day, and then I got surprised when it left a wound too big to heal. I slept with Mick because I wanted to protect our careers, mine and hers, and that was more important to me than the sanctity of our relationship. And I slept with Harry because I wanted a baby and I thought people would get suspicious if we adopted. because I was afraid to draw attention to the sexlessness of our marriage. And I chose that over the sanctity of our relationship. And when Max Girard had a good idea about a creative choice in a movie, I wanted to do it. And I was willing to do it at the expense of the sanctity of our relationship. You're hard on yourself, I think, I say. Celia wasn't perfect. She could be cruel. Evelyn shrugs slightly. She always made sure the bad was outweighed by so much good. Well, I didn't do that for her. I made it 50-50, which is about the cruelest thing you can do to someone you love. Give them just enough good to make them stick through a hell of a lot of bad. Of course, I realized all this when she left me, and I tried to fix it, but it was too late. As she said, she simply couldn't do it anymore, because it took me too long to figure out what I cared about. Not because of my sexuality. I feel confident you're going to get that right. I promise, I say. I will. I know you will. And while we're on the subject of how I'd like to be portrayed, there's something else you need to get exactly right. I won't be able to clear things up after I'm gone. I want to know now. I want to be absolutely sure that you'll represent what I'm telling you accurately. Okay, I say. What is it? Evelyn's mood turns a bit darker. I'm not a good person, Monique. Make sure in the book that that's clear. That I'm not claiming to be good, that I did a lot of things that hurt a lot of people, and I would do them over again if I had to. I don't know, I say. You don't seem so bad, Evelyn. You, of all people, are going to change your mind about that, she says. Very soon. And all I can think is, what the fuck did she do?
John died of a heart attack in 1980. He was just shy of 50. It didn't make any sense. The most athletic and fit of us, the one who didn't smoke, the one who exercised every day, he shouldn't have been the one whose heart stopped. But things don't make sense, and when he left us, he left a giant-sized hole in our lives. Connor was 5. It was hard to explain to her where Uncle John went. It was even harder to explain to her why her father was so heartbroken. For weeks, Harry could barely get out of bed. When he did, it was to drink bourbon. He was rarely sober, always somber, and often unkind. Celia was photographed in tears, her eyes bloodshot, walking into her trailer on location in Arizona. I wanted to hold her. I wanted us all to see one another through it. But I knew that wasn't in the cards. But I could help Harry. So Connor and I stayed with him at his apartment every day. She slept in her room there. I slept on the sofa in his bedroom. I made sure he ate. I made sure he bathed. I made sure he played make-believe with his daughter. One morning I woke up to find Harry and Connor both in the kitchen. Connor was pouring herself a bowl of cereal while Harry stood in his pajama bottoms looking out the window. He had an empty glass in his hand. When he turned away from the view and back toward Connor, I said, "Good morning." And Connor said, "Daddy, why do your eyes look wet?" I wasn't sure if he'd been crying or if he was already a few drinks into the day that early in the morning. At the funeral, I wore a black vintage Halston. Harry wore a black suit with a black shirt, black tie, black belt, and black socks. Grief never left his face. His profound, guttural pain didn't follow the story we had sold the press, that Harry and John were friends, that Harry and I were in love. nor did the fact that John left the house to Harry. But despite my instincts, I did not encourage Harry to hide his feelings or decline the house. I had very little energy left to try to hide who we were. I had learned all too well that pain was sometimes stronger than the need to keep up appearances. Celia was there, in a long-sleeved black mini-dress. She did not say hello to me. She barely looked at me. I stared at her, aching to walk over and grab her hand, but I didn't take a single step in her direction. I was not going to use this loss of Harry's to ease my own. I wasn't going to make her talk to me, not like that. Harry held back tears as John's casket was lowered into the ground. Celia walked away. Connor watched me watch her and said, "Mom, who is that lady? I think I know her." "You do, honey," I said. "You did." And then Connor, my adorable baby girl, said, "She's the one who dies in your movie." And I realized she didn't remember Celia at all. She recognized her from Little Women. "She's the nice one, the one who wants everyone to be happy," Connor said. That's when I knew the family I had made had truly disintegrated.
Now This, July 3rd, 1980. Celia St. James and Joan Marker, best of friends. Celia St. James and Hollywood newcomer Joan Marker have become the talk of the town lately. Marker, best known for her star-making turn in last year's Promise Me, is quickly becoming the it girl of the season, and who better to show her the ropes than America's sweetheart? Seen shopping together in Santa Monica and grabbing lunches in Beverly Hills, the two can't seem to get enough of each other. We certainly hope this means the duo are planning a movie together, because that would be a tour de force of performances.
I knew the only way to get Harry to start living his life again was to surround him with Connor and work. The Connor part was easy. She loved her father. She wanted his attention every second of the day. She was growing up to look even more like him, with his ice blue eyes and his broad, tall frame. And when he was with her, he would stop drinking. He cared about being a good father, and he knew he had a responsibility to be sober for her. But when he went back to his own home every night, a fact still secret from the outside world, I knew he was drinking himself to sleep. On the days he was not with us, I knew he wasn't getting out of bed. So work was my only option. I had to find something he would love. It had to be a script he would feel passionate about and one with a great role for me. Not just because I wanted a great role, but also because Harry wouldn't do anything for himself, but he would do anything if he believed I needed him to. So I read scripts, hundreds of scripts over the months. And then Max Girard sent me one that he was having trouble getting made. It was called All for Us. It was about a single mother of 3 who moves to New York City to try to support her children and pursue her dreams. It was about trying to make ends meet in the cold, hard city, but it was also about hope and daring to believe you deserve more, both of which I knew would appeal to Harry. And the role of Renee, the mother, was honest, righteous, and powerful. I ran it over to Harry and begged him to read it. When he tried to avoid it, I said, "I think it will finally get me my Oscar." That's what made him pick it up. I loved shooting All for Us. And it wasn't because I finally got that goddamn statue for it, or because I became even closer with Max Girard on the set. I loved shooting All for Us because while it didn't get Harry to put down the bottle, it did get him out of bed. 4 months after the movie came out, Harry and I went to the Oscars together. Max Girard had attended with a model named Bridget Manners, but he had joked for weeks before the event that all he wanted was to attend with me, to have me on his arm. He had even taken to joking that given all the men I'd married, he was crushed that I'd never married him. I had to admit that Max was quickly becoming someone I truly felt close to. So while he did technically have a date, it felt, as we all sat in the first row together, that I was there with the two men who meant the most to me. Connor was back at the hotel, watching on TV with Louisa. Earlier that day, she had given Harry and me each a picture she had drawn. Mine was a gold star. Harry's was a lightning bolt. She said they were for luck. I tucked mine into my clutch. Harry put his in his tuxedo pocket. When they called out the nominees for Best Actress, I realized that I hadn't really ever believed I could win. With the Oscar would come certain things I'd always wanted: credibility, gravitas. And if I truly looked inward, I realized I didn't think I had credibility or gravitas. Harry squeezed my hand as Brick Thomas opened the envelope. And then, despite everything I had told myself, he said my name. I stared straight ahead, my chest heaving, unable to process what I'd heard. And then Harry looked at me and said, "You did it." I stood up and hugged him. I walked to the podium. I took the Oscar that Brick was handing me, and I put my hand to my chest to try to slow down my heartbeat. When the clapping subsided, I leaned into the microphone and gave a speech that was both premeditated and extemporaneous. I tried to remember what I'd prepared to say all the other times I thought I might win. "Thank you," I said, looking out into a sea of familiar, gorgeous faces. "Thank you not just for this award, which I will cherish forever, but also for letting me work in this business. It hasn't always been easy, and God knows I've made a bumpy road of it. But I feel so incredibly lucky to live this life. So thank you not just to every producer I've worked with since the mid-50s, oh God, I'm really dating myself here, but specifically to my favorite producer, Harry Cameron. I love you. I love our child. Hi, Connor. Go to sleep now, honey. It's getting late." And to all the other actors and actresses I've worked with, to all the directors who have helped me grow as a performer, especially Max Girard, I thank you. By the way, I believe this counts as a hat trick, Max. And there's one other person out there whom I think of every day. 10 years before, I would have been far too scared to say anything more. I probably would have been too scared even to say that. But I had to tell her, even though I hadn't spoken to her in years, I had to show her that I still loved her, that I always would. I know she's watching right now, and I just hope she knows how important she is to me. Thank you all. Thank you. Shaking, I walked backstage and got hold of myself. I talked to reporters, I accepted congratulations, and I got back to my seat just in time for Max to win Best Director and Harry to win Best Picture. Afterward, the three of us posed for photo after photo, grinning from ear to ear. We had climbed to the very top of the mountain, and that night we stuck our flags into the summit. Sometime around 1 in the morning, after Harry had already gone back to the hotel to check on Connor, Max and I were outside in the courtyard of a mansion owned by the head of Paramount. There was a circular fountain spraying water into the night sky. Max and I sat, marveling at what we had accomplished together. His limo pulled up. "Can I give you a ride back to your hotel?" he asked. "Where's your date?" Max shrugged. "I fear she was only interested in the ticket to the show." I laughed. Poor Max. "Not poor Max," he said, shaking his head. "I spent my evening with the most beautiful woman in the world." I shook my head. "You are too much." "You look hungry. Come, get in the car. We will get hamburgers." "Hamburgers?" I'm sure even Evelyn Hugo eats a hamburger from time to time. Max opened the limo door and waited for me to get in. Your chariot, he said. I wanted to go home and see Connor. I wanted to watch the way her mouth hung open as she slept. But the idea of getting a hamburger with Max Girard actually didn't sound so bad. Minutes later, the limo driver was trying to navigate the drive-through of a Jack-in-the-Box, and Max and I decided it was easier to get out of the car and go in. The two of us stood in line, me in my navy blue silk gown, him in his tux, behind two teenage boys ordering French fries. And then when we got to the front of the line, the cashier screamed as if she'd seen a mouse. "Oh, my God," she said, "you're Evelyn Hugo." I laughed. "I have no idea what you're talking about," I said. After 25 years, that line still worked every time. "You're her! Evelyn Hugo!" "Nonsense." "This is the greatest day of my life," she said, and then she called to the back, "Norm, you have to come see this. Evelyn Hugo is here, in a gown." Max laughed as more and more people started to stare. I was beginning to feel like a caged animal. It's not something you really ever get used to, being stared at in small spaces. A few of the people in the kitchen came forward to look at me. "Any chance we could get 2 burgers?" Max said. "Extra cheese on mine, please." Everyone ignored him. "Can I have your autograph?" the woman behind the counter asked. "Sure," I said kindly. I was hoping it would be over soon, that we could get the food and go. I started signing paper menus and paper hats. I signed a couple of receipts. "We really should be going," I said. "It's late." But no one stopped. They all just kept pushing things at me. "You won an Oscar," an older woman said, "just a few hours ago." "I saw it. I saw it myself." "I did, yes," I said. I pointed at Max with the pen in my hand. "So did he." Max waved. I signed a few more things, shook a few more hands. "Okay, I really must be going," I said. But the mob of people crowded me more. "Okay," Max said, "let the lady breathe." I looked in the direction of his voice and saw him coming toward me, breaking up the crowd. He handed me the burgers, picked me up, threw me over his shoulder, and walked us right out of the restaurant and into the limo. "Wow," I said when he put me down. He got in next to me. He grabbed the bag. "Evelyn," he said. "What?" "I love you." "What do you mean you love me?" He leaned over, smooshed the burgers, and kissed me. It felt as if someone had turned on the electricity in a long-abandoned building. I had not been kissed like that since Celia left me. I had not been kissed with desire, the kind of desire that spurs desire, since the love of my life walked out the door. And here was Max, 2 deformed burgers in between us, his warm lips on mine. "That is what I mean," he said when he pulled away from me. "Do with that what you will." The next morning, I woke up as an Oscar winner with a precious 6-year-old eating room service in my bed. There was a knock at the door. I grabbed my robe. I opened the door. In front of me were 24 red roses with a note that said, "I have loved you since I met you. I have tried to stop. It will not work. Leave him, ma belle. Marry me. Please. XOM."
We should stop there, Evelyn says. She's right. It's getting late, and I suspect I have a number of missed calls and emails to return, including what I know will be a voicemail from David. Okay, I say, closing my notebook and pressing stop on the recording. Evelyn gathers some of the papers and stale coffee mugs that have accumulated over the day. I check my phone. 2 missed calls from David, 1 from Frankie, 1 from my mother. I say goodbye to Evelyn and make my way onto the street. The air is warmer than I anticipated, so I take off my coat. I pull my phone out of my pocket. I listen to my mother's voicemail first, because I'm not sure I'm ready to know what David has to say. I don't know what I want him to say, and thus, I don't know what will disappoint me when he doesn't say it. "Hi, honey," my mom says. "I'm just calling to remind you that I'll be there soon. My flight gets in Friday evening, and I know you're going to insist on meeting me at the airport because of that time I got lost on the subway. But don't worry about it. Really, I can figure out how to get to my daughter's apartment from JFK or LaGuardia. Oh, God, you don't think I accidentally booked the flight to Newark, do you? No, I didn't. I wouldn't have. Anyway, I'm so excited to see you, my little dumpling baby. I love you." I'm already laughing before the message is over. My mother has gotten lost in New York a number of times, not just once. And it's always because she refuses to take a cab. She insists that she can navigate public transportation, even though she was born and raised in Los Angeles and therefore has no real sense of how any two modes of transportation intersect. Also, I've always hated it when she called me her dumpling baby, mostly because we both know it's a reference to how fat I was as a child. I looked like an overstuffed dumpling. By the time her message is over and I'm done texting her back, "So excited to see you. We'll meet you at the airport. Just tell me which one." I'm at the subway station. I could easily make the argument to myself that I should listen to David's voicemail when I get to Brooklyn. And I almost do. I very nearly do. But instead I stand outside the stairwell and hit play. "Hey," he says, his gravelly voice so familiar. "I texted you, but I didn't hear back. I'm in New York. I'm home. I'm here at the apartment, our apartment. Or, your apartment, whatever. I'm here, waiting for you. I know it's short notice, but don't you think we should talk about things? Don't you think there's more to say? I'm just rambling now, so I'm gonna go. But hopefully, I'll see you soon." When the message is over, I run down the stairs, swipe my card, and slip onto the train just as it's leaving. I pack myself into the crowded car and try to calm down as we roar through each stop. What the hell is he doing home? I get off the train and make my way to the street. I put my coat on when I hit the fresh air. Brooklyn feels colder than Manhattan tonight. I try not to run to my apartment. I try to remain calm, to remain composed. There is no need for you to rush, I tell myself. Besides, I don't want to show up out of breath, and I really don't want to ruin my hair. I head through the front entrance and up the stairs to my apartment. I slip my key into my door, and there he is, David. In my kitchen, cleaning dishes as if he lives here. "Hi," I say, staring at him. He looks exactly the same. Blue eyes, thick lashes, cropped hair. He's wearing a maroon, heathered t-shirt and dark gray jeans. When I met him, as we fell in love, I remember thinking that the fact that he was white made things easier, because I knew he would never tell me I wasn't black enough. I think of Evelyn the first time she heard her maid speaking Spanish. I remember thinking that the fact that he wasn't that well-read meant he would never think I was a bad writer. I think of Celia telling Evelyn she wasn't a good actress. I remember thinking that the fact that I was clearly the more attractive one made me feel better, because I thought that meant he'd never leave. I think of how Dawn treated Evelyn despite her being arguably the most beautiful woman in the world. Evelyn rose to those challenges. But looking at David right now, I can see that I've hidden from them. Perhaps my entire life. "Hi," he says. I can't help but vomit the words out of my mouth. I do not have the time or energy or restraint to curate them well or deliver them mildly. "What are you doing here?" I say. David puts the bowl in his hand into the cupboard and then turns back to me. I came back to iron out a few things, he says. And am I something to iron out? I ask. I put my bag down in the corner. I kick off my shoes. You're something I need to set right, he says. I made a mistake. I think we both did. Why, until this moment, did I not realize that the issue is my own confidence? That the root of most of my problems is that I need to be secure enough in who I am to tell anyone who doesn't like it to go fuck themselves. Why have I spent so long settling for less, when I know damn well the world expects more? I didn't make a mistake, I say. And it surprises me just as much, if not more, than it surprises him. Monique, we were both acting rash. I was upset that you wouldn't move to San Francisco because it felt like I had earned the right to ask you to sacrifice for me, for my career. I start formulating a response, but David keeps talking. And you were upset that I would ask that of you in the first place, because I know how important your life is here. But there are other ways to handle this. We can do long distance for a little while, and eventually I can move back here, or you can move to San Francisco down the line. We have options. That's all I'm saying. We don't have to get a divorce. We don't have to give up on this. I sit down on the couch, fiddling with my hands as I think. Now that he says it, I realize what has made me so sad these past few weeks, what has plagued me and made me feel so terrible about myself. It isn't rejection, and it isn't heartbreak. It is defeat. I wasn't heartbroken when Dawn left me. I simply felt like my marriage had failed, and those are very different things. Evelyn said that just last week, and now I understand why it got under my skin. I have been reeling because I failed, because I picked the wrong guy for me, because I entered the wrong marriage, because the truth is that at the age of 35, I have yet to love someone enough to sacrifice for them. I've yet to open my heart enough to let someone in that much. Some marriages aren't really that great. Some loves aren't all-encompassing. Sometimes you separate because you weren't that good together to begin with. Sometimes divorce isn't an earth-shattering loss. Sometimes it's just two people waking up out of a fog. I think you should go home to San Francisco, I say to him finally. David comes and joins me on the couch. And I think I should stay here, I say. And I don't think a long-distance marriage is the right play. I think divorce is the right play. Monique, I'm sorry, I say as he takes my hand. I wish I didn't feel that way. But I suspect deep down you think it too. Because you didn't come here and tell me how much you miss me, or how hard it has been to live without me. You said you didn't want to give up. And look, I don't want to give up either. I don't want to fail at this. But that's not actually a great reason to stay together. We should have reasons why we don't want to give up. It shouldn't just be that we don't want to give up. And I don't. I don't have any. I'm unsure how to say what I want to say gently, so I just say it. You have never felt like my other half. It is only once David gets up off the sofa that I realize I assumed we would be sitting here talking for a long time. And it is only once he puts on his jacket that I realize he probably assumed he would sleep here tonight. But once he has his hand on the doorknob, I realize that I have put into motion the end of a lackluster life in the interest of eventually finding a great one. I hope one day you find someone who feels like the other half of you, I guess, David says. Like Celia. Thank you, I say. I hope you find it too. David smiles in a way that is more of a frown, and then he leaves. When you end a marriage, you're supposed to lose sleep over it, aren't you? But I don't. I sleep free. I get a call from Frankie the next morning, just as I'm sitting down at Evelyn's. I consider putting it through to voicemail, but there's already too much swirling around in my brain. To add, call back Frankie might just put me over the edge. Better to handle it now. Have it behind me. Hi, Frankie, I say. Hey, she says. Her voice is light, almost cheerful. So we need to schedule the photographers. I assume Evelyn will want them to come to her there at the apartment. Oh, that's a good question, I say. 1 second. I mute my phone to turn to Evelyn. They're asking when and where you'll want to do the photo shoot. Here is fine, Evelyn says. Let's aim for Friday. That's 3 days away. Yes, I believe Friday comes after Thursday. Do I have that right? I smile and shake my head at her and then unmute Frankie. Evelyn says here at the apartment on Friday. Late morning, maybe. Evelyn says 11. 11 okay? I say to Frankie. Frankie agrees. Absolutely fantastic. I hang up and look at Evelyn. You want to do a photo shoot in 3 days? No, you want me to do a photo shoot, remember? You're sure about Friday, though? We'll be done by then, Evelyn says. You'll have to work even later than normal. I'll make sure Grace has those muffins you like, and the coffee from Pete's that I know you prefer. Okay, I say. That's fine, but there's still a lot of ground to cover. Don't worry, we'll be done by Friday. When I look at her skeptically, she says, You should be happy, Monique. You're going to get your answers.
When Harry read the note Max had sent me, he was stunned silent. At first I thought I had hurt his feelings by showing it to him, but then I realized he was thinking. We had taken Connor to a playground in Coldwater Canyon in Beverly Hills. Our flight back to New York left in a few hours. Connor was playing on the swings as Harry and I watched her. Nothing would change between us, he said, if we divorced. But Harry, John is gone, Celia is gone. There is no need to hide behind double dates. Nothing would change. We would change, I said, watching Connor pump her legs harder, swing higher. Harry was watching her through his sunglasses, smiling at her. He waved to her. Good job, honey, he called out. Remember to keep your hands tight on the chains if you're going to go that high. He had started to control his drinking a bit. He had learned to pick and choose his moments of indulgence. And he never let anything get in the way of his work or his daughter. But I still worried about what he'd do if left too much to his own devices. He turned to me. We wouldn't change, Ev. I promise you that. I would live in my house just like now. You'd live in yours. I'd come by every day. Connor would sleep at my place the night she wanted. If anything, appearances-wise, it might make more sense. Pretty soon people are going to start asking why we own 2 different houses. Harry, you do what you want. If you don't want to be with Max, don't be. I'm just saying that there are some fairly good reasons for us to get divorced, and not many cons, except that I won't call you my wife anymore, which I've always been so proud to do. But we will still be, as we've always been, a family, and I think it would be good for you to fall in love with someone. You deserve to be loved that way. So do you. Harry smiled sorrowfully. I had my love, and he's gone. But for you, I think it's time. Maybe it will be Max, maybe it won't, but maybe it should be somebody. I don't like the idea of divorcing you, I said, no matter how meaningless it might actually be. Dad, watch! Connor said as she flung her legs into the air, swung high, and then leaped, landing on her feet. She nearly gave me a heart attack. Harry laughed. Outstanding, he said to her, and then he turned to me. Sorry, I might have taught her that. I figured. Connor got back onto the swing, and Harry leaned toward me and put his arm around my shoulders. I know you don't like the idea of divorcing me, he said, but I think you do like the idea of marrying Max. Otherwise, I don't think you would have bothered to show me that note. Are you really serious about this? I asked. Max and I were back in New York at his apartment. It had been 3 weeks since he had told me he loved me. I am very serious, Max said. What is the saying? As serious as cancer? A heart attack. Fine, I am as serious as a heart attack. We barely know each other, I said. We have known each other since 1960, my belle. You simply do not realize how much time has passed. That's more than 20 years. I was in my mid-40s. Max was a few years older. With a daughter and a fake husband, I thought falling in love again was out of the question for me. I wasn't sure how it would ever happen. And here was a man, a handsome man, a man I did rather like, a man I shared a history with, who was saying he loved me. So, you're suggesting I leave Harry just like that, because of what we think might be between us? Max frowned at me. I am not as stupid as you think I am, he said. I don't think you're stupid at all. Harry is a homosexual, he said. I felt my body pull back as far away from him as possible. I have no idea what you're talking about, I said. Max laughed. That line didn't work when we were getting burgers, and it won't work now. Max, do you enjoy spending time with me? Of course I do. And do you not agree that we understand each other, creatively speaking? Of course. Have I not directed you in 3 of the most important films of your career? You have. And do you think that is an accident? I thought about it. No, I said, it's not. No, it isn't, he said. It's because I see you. It is because I ache for you. It is because, from the very moment I set my eyes on you, my body was full of desire for you. It is because I have been falling in love with you for decades. The camera sees you as I see you, and when that happens, you soar. You're a talented director. Yes, of course I am, he said, but only because you inspire me. You, my Evelyn Hugo, are the talent that powers every movie you are in. You are my muse, and I am your conductor. I am the person who brings out your greatest work. I breathed in deeply, considering what he was saying. You're right, I said. You are absolutely right. I can't think of anything more erotic than that, he said, than being each other's inspiration. He leaned in close to me. I could feel the heat of him on my skin. And I can think of nothing more meaningful than the way we understand each other. You should leave Harry. He will be fine. No one knows what he is, and even if they do, no one's talking. He doesn't need you to protect him anymore. I need you, Evelyn. I need you so badly, he whispered into my ear. The heat of his breath, the way his stubble scratched my cheek, awakened me. I grabbed him. I kissed him. I pulled my shirt off. I tore his. I unfastened the belt of his pants, flinging the buckle. I ripped apart the button-fly of my jeans. I pushed myself against him. The way he grabbed me back, the way he moved, made it clear he was yearning for me, that he couldn't believe his luck to be touching me. When I pulled off the straps of my bra and exposed my breasts, he looked me in the eye and then placed his hands on my chest, as if he'd unlocked a hidden treasure. It felt so good to be touched like that, to set free my desire. He lay down on the couch, and I sat on top of him, moving the way I wanted to, taking what I needed from him, feeling pleasure for the first time in years. It felt like water in the desert. When it was over, I didn't want to be apart from him. I wanted to never leave his side. "You'd be a stepfather," I said. "Do you get that?" "I love Connor," Max said. "I love children, so to me that is a benefit. And Harry will always be around. He will never go away. He's a constant. He does not bother me. I've always liked Harry." "I'd want to stay in my house," I said, "not here. I won't uproot Connor." "Fine," he said. I was quiet. I didn't know exactly what I wanted, except that I wanted more of him. I wanted the experience of him again. I kissed him. I moaned. I eased him on top of me. I closed my eyes, and for the first time in years, when I closed them, I did not see Celia. "Yes," I said as he made love to me, "I'll marry you."